Here's what I'm sense. She's the self-help author and Democratic presidential candidate who once said she would harness love to defeat Donald Trump. The power of the mind may have...
That's so based, though.
She once wrote, the sickness doesn't exist, and diseases like cancer and AIDS and other physical illnesses are physical manifestations of a psychic scream. Now, some of that she's walked back with a history of saying things that many may deem quirky at best. Does Marianne Williamson really believe she has a shot at becoming the first female president of the United States? Well, let's find out. She joins me now. Marianne Williamson, great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much.
So I want to start with some of those things that you've said in the past. I know you've walked some of them back, but when you
I
run...
haven't walked any of them.
Well, I think you did when you talked about... You don't take any of it back.
It's not about walking them back. It's about pointing out how disconnected they are from the context in which any of those things were said. I never said that the power of the mind, these are all misrepresentations and mischaracterizations of what I said. If you say I have to walk them back, it's as though I'm supposed to admit that I said something completely ridiculous. Nothing that I said within the context that I said it was ridiculous at all. That's all.
Would you say you regret any of those things that we referenced?
Not if you look at the context in which they were spoken. No, no. I shouldn't apologize for the fact that there is now an understanding of a mind-body connection. Anybody in any kind of a psychotherapeutic situation might say, "Oh, I'm in such pain. It feels like my body is screaming." Listen, I have osteoporosis. My mother died of diabetes. My sister died of breast cancer.
She said diabetes.
I have spent most of my career being of service to people with AIDS.
Plenty of people say diabetes.
I'm howling. So that's fucking amazing.
That's an American pronunciation of that word, man.
Diabetes.
A lot of people say it like that.
Other critical illnesses. No one needs to school me on the reality of illnesses and its ravages. I am not a woman who doesn't understand those things.
You are a woman. And if you were to win, you would become the
fucking
female president of the United States. And that does beg the question, the burning question, one that has tripped up so many famous people in the world of politics around the world. It's cost people their jobs. So let me ask you straightforwardly, what is a woman?
What is a woman?
Yeah.
Well, a woman, if you look at it only biologically, I wrote a book called A Woman's Worth. I am a woman who was born into a woman's body. I think of myself as a woman. But it's a different world today. People can define their sex, their sexuality, binary, non-binary, however they want. I just know what I am as a woman. So I'm not going to get trapped into any of that. We live in a free society. And in a free society, people can identify however they wish to identify, do whatever they do, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. And I have no problem with that.
What about when it does hurt, for example, female people?
Haha, fucking knew that was coming.
I knew you said kids. I knew he was going sports. It's always that sports is the introduction. This whole idea of an unfair advantage is like Emma from Majority Report has this argument. Basically, should they ban Yao Ming because he has an unfair height advantage?
Because he's huge, yeah. I mean,
the genetic diversity between humans, everyone always has an unfair advantage, and think of how much wealth has an advantage of when you have, like Serena Williams, they had tennis camps their whole life. No, Naomi Osaka, she's been playing tennis her whole life in prestige tennis camps,
Yeah.
They're the best because of the luxury they had and the privilege they had of the training.
Yeah.
To have an unfair advantage. Tiger Woods was playing at such a young age that he had so many years advantage over people. And that's her argument, basically, because she's really into sports. They're pretending to care about women's sports for once.
Yes, yeah, and nobody cares.
Who are suddenly seeing themselves come up against trans women who might be 6'4" tall and are powering past them in swimming pools. That does do genuine harm. What's your view about that issue?
That is a complicated subject, absolutely. But there are ways through muscle mass, through hormones, through chemical testing. There are ways to determine whether or not
you can't think though, as a female candidate.
This is going to be the whole discussion.
You cannot surely think it is remotely fair for trans athletes. And I've got nothing against trans people. I've always supported.
Yes, you do. Shut the fuck up.
I just feel that this is completely unfair, and trans athletes should simply not be allowed to compete against biological females. End.
Those situations, once again, they're complicated. They're not all the same.
It's not that complicated.
There are officials. It is actually, because there are some situations where it may be what you just said, other situations where it may not be. You know, it's important that we protect the rights of the minority. It's also important that we protect the rights of the majority. So those things should be determined according to factors that are agreed upon by the sports officials, and all of the people seeking to be part of those races should be protected. Their rights should be protected and honored.
What would be the first thing you'd do as president if you won?
One of the first things I would do is determine that there would be an audit for the Pentagon, every cent that we spend there.
She did a good job just saying that, you know, she's not going to get tied down in this. He really tried to.
He really did.
She just immediately, she's taking, and this is how to get out of stuff. So when you hear people will say it, where they talk about Ukraine, where they were like, you know, they'll take like a both sides argument. Not always the good thing to do, but if you take a both sides argument, you immediately will get out of traps.
Yeah.
It's an effective debate strategy to take a both sides argument to get out of a trap being set.
Mm-hmm. I just hate debates.
I would cancel all contracts where the United States government has contracts with union-busting companies. I would deschedule marijuana from a Schedule I drug. I would bring together
legalize
a group to have a very serious conversation about
how... That's the thing is that decriminalization is also really good.
Yeah, legalize, decriminalize, whatever.
Because the thing about legalization is that we see it all the time. The market immediately gets controlled by white people.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, decriminalizing it means that there's no taxes for people. That's the same. So, like, you know, Molly Smash, she's a libertarian, but she's like a sex work advocate, and she only wants it decriminalized because she doesn't want tax involved.
That's hilarious. Okay, I'll go with that stance. That's good. Decriminalize it. And also, what's it called when you remove sentences and release people?
Pardoning. Pardon on all non-violent marijuana crimes.
Yeah, that should also be a major part of that as well.
Yeah,
and also remuneration for the time spent in jail for it. I think that's only fair.
Getting out of jail, we've made it very, very hard for people. It's very, very hard. So then you'll have how many of those people are going to be sent back in because of they don't get a job because nobody wants to hire somebody, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's just a stigma, a cultural stigma that
there needs to still be the things that are in place to get people integrated back into society. Yeah. It's a very bottom up thing, but full pardons would mean that they wouldn't be on probation whatsoever.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
So, that would be a big deal is making sure they're not on probation whatsoever, but also alongside that, another step further is also having integration to society programs.
Yes.
That are independent.
That would be crucial.
And that's one of the things that they do to keep people in jail is they mandate these classes you have to take.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can't drive, right? Because a lot of times if you're a felon, they don't give you your license. So you can't drive, and then you have to make all these classes, and then you have to also find a job. They make it almost impossible to get out of prison for certain cases.
How we were going to get to universal health care, and I would also use the marching rights that are part of the Bayh-Dole Act of 1980, by which pharmaceutical companies are told that if you developed a drug with even $1 of taxpayer money, which means most drugs in the United States, that the government has the right to lower those prices. I would bring together...
See, she's even got a better pharmaceutical big pharma stance than RFK.
Yeah. I don't mind that one.
Yeah. It could like controlling drug prices, especially stuff for like diabetes.
Yeah.
A group of leaders.
Which this is a Joe Biden policy, though. This type of drug reform, lowering the cost of insulin, stuff like that. That is part of Joe Biden's policy.
Who are the experts on childhood, everything having to do with the neurophysiology of children, neuropsychology, the needs of children in terms of health, in terms of education, everything that it would take to have the greatest experts on childhood, because I want to develop a department of children and youth. I want a massive transfer of resources into the lives of children 10 years and younger.
Okay.
I want to
listen, this is all. Listen, I don't.
Oh, but what about the taxpayer? What about the taxpayer? Oh, shut up.
Stop you, but I'm going to run out of all time. But okay, that all sounds very laudable. And you rattle them off. You've obviously thought about it a lot, which is good. What would you do, for example, as commander in chief if China invaded Taiwan?
Fucking awesome. He wasn't talking. I'm so glad he didn't ask her about tax questions and pivoted to that type of question. That's awesome.
Well, this will be very interesting, her answer.
It's a very, very difficult one. And hopefully, if the day I'm president, China will not have invaded Taiwan. I will certainly not poke the bear. I would certainly try to walk back any of this almost Cold War type of conversation that is happening too much in this country between the United States.
What if you were commander-in-chief and they literally, as many people think is highly likely in whoever is the next president in that term of office, if they did invade Taiwan? Joe Biden has said he would be there to help. Would you?
What did you say that Joe Biden has said?
He said that he would help the Taiwanese if that happened.
Well, there are different ways. There are different ways to help the Taiwanese, and I believe that we're trying to help them right now. And one of the ways that we're also trying to help the Taiwanese is to build better relationships with China so that we can be more on a road towards healthy collaboration, which we will need, not only economically, but in order to deal with the climate crisis in the years ahead.
She's right. She's not taking a neocon position, but she's right. We do the same thing too. We make sure that China is dependent on us to prevent this invasion. That's absolutely part of the policy. So
it's a decent policy.
The only thing she said there is that she said this in the other one too, is she's not interested in people who are too aggressive on China.
Yeah,
so it's still an anti-neocon thing.
Yeah, my only issue is China is a genocidal ethnic state committing an active genocide, and how would people how would people react if America was like, no, we're not gonna poke the bear, we're just gonna make deals with Nazi Germany? I don't think that would go over very well.
I think that's already in a big realization with Israel.
Yeah,
and I think with respect to the people that are facing what they're facing in China, I think for the United States, breaking the war on Palestine is a far more important issue to push for. I think things like cotton bans do a long way. Stuff like not free trade, supply chain acts that mandate that there can't be like forced labor. Like Adidas investigated their own labor and like got
Nike
that shit out of there.
Yeah, Nike did as well.
So like they still are going to use sweatshops and exploitive practices and stuff like that, but more of that type of attitude where you don't need to hit China on the aggressive front like that. You can do it with these very, very subtle things that are limiting the cost-effective use of the slaves, because slaves also yield less for you.
Yeah.
Than a waged labor.
So let's right now work on where we are. Let's not poke the bear. Let's take the temperature down.
This is Joe Biden's policy.
Of China, not as an enemy, but as a collaborator, hopefully someone that we can compete with in a healthy way.
Hold on. So it's all well and good to say that, but China is actively propagandizing and brainwashing their citizenry.
Let's keep in mind when Joe Biden said he would do that, his team immediately was walking it back to appease China.
Yeah.
He said that once. He said that once in an interview that he would be there for Taiwan. And it's a very hard thing to say. He'll immediately start being silenced.
Yeah.
So I think she's making the right decisions for her campaign by not taking a hardline stance right here.
But my problem is with China is that they actively, as I was saying before, is they're actively propagandizing their populace to believe they're already at war with America and that America is the enemy, and by extension the entire of the global north. So like it's all well and good to be like, oh, we're not going to be active enemies.
Well, I also
China.
think that we're doing the right thing by moving a lot of businesses to Southeast Asia.
Yes.
If the thing is this, like if you just cut it off, there's going to be problems. We want to kind of just do it in a way where we basically just kind of, like she's saying, like, don't be aggressive about it. You have to subtly fight China in a subtle way, And
I just think
the thing is about the Nazis is that we weren't doing anything to really counter them. So it's not so even if we were working with them, if we were working in a way that was countering things like the use of Jews, if people knew at the time, those cotton bans are going to go a long way from America.
I just don't think
people will say that's very
appeasing
naive.
China is the
If you
right
took
way
that
to go about it.
attitude with, say, Vladimir Putin, that's not going to stop him invading countries. And
That's the thing is, you can't look at it as appeasement.
But that's
Because
exactly
we're
what it
actively
is.
hurting them at the same time. It's like Angela Merkel admitted that the whole reason she had been dealing with Vladimir Putin was to buy Ukraine time, right?
Yeah.
That's the type of strategy that I'm talking about.
Mm.
That's a legitimate strategy and a legitimate foreign policy strategy that works, and that's exactly what Joe Biden's doing. The Trump admin was way more aggressive on China, and look at what it did. Like it was only once Mike Pompeo got in where we got like Quad and like cotton bans and stuff like that. But his whole trade policy against China, he tried. He's an idiot. It failed. That like we can stick with the position that we know is working right now and just expand on it to be way more harsh on forced labor.
So what happens when China's like, fuck it, we're just going to exterminate them?
I mean, they kind of already are.
Well, sure, but hypothetically, let's say they just start exterminating people. Are we going to sit around and just appease China still?
Well, sanctions are going to come before anything. So when sanctions hit, that's going to cut those trade ties.
Mm.
So if China does something that's going to yield sanctions, which I believe they already have, and I believe that motion should be happening at the UN to sanction them, but that's a different story than what she has control over.
Yeah.
People look to America, for better or worse, as the global policeman. And if you want to run the country, you want to be the boss, you're going to face some very tough decisions about what you do when the bears actually go and do bad stuff.
Thank you, Paris. I understand what the role of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States is. There's nothing naive at all about what I just said about China. And the last thing I'm not naive about is Vladimir Putin.
Joe Biden has said he won't debate other Democrat candidates in the primary season. Many people think that's just cowardly. What's your view?
Of course he should debate us. There are 3 candidates for this nomination. There is not an enthusiasm in this country, as you were mentioning earlier. There is not an enthusiasm for a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of people have said that they wish the president would not run again. If the American people hear his agenda for the next 4 years, and they hear my agenda for the next 4 years, and the agenda of anyone else who is running, and they say, through their votes in a Democratic primary, yes, I think Joe Biden is the best candidate to win in 2024 and the best leader for the next 4 years. Then God bless him, he should be the one. But the idea that the DNC and the Democratic elite establishment can just shoehorn him into the nomination is undemocratic. If you have a party, which we do,
but that's what they do every time.
Itself as a champion of democracy, we should not be so wary of democracy in our own house. So it is important that the president debate me.
I completely agree.
Like the serious times primaries have happened, there's stuff like I think Teddy Roosevelt did one where he basically destroyed. You do real primaries to destroy the party. She knows what she's doing. It's also a good way to sell books.
Yeah.
We know she's not getting elected, and these ideas are fine to push forward. And I think she's doing a great. I mean, it's easy to one up Piers Morgan, but I think she's did a great job there.
It was a good interview.
I think she's a normal, practical person, unlike RFK.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He's quite afraid of debating you, actually. What do you make of this issue of the Biden family and all this foreign money from adversaries, which appears to have been pouring into their coffers?
Tell them you don't care.
Well, it appears to be. We don't know yet. The facts aren't all out. We have rules of due process in this country, and no one, whether it's Donald Trump or President Biden, should be above the law. We'll see what happens. But no matter what happens, this is certainly a shadow on his candidacy, and one more factor for people to think about in terms of a president whose approval ratings are already very low. So there's Hunter Biden is not his father. We don't know. We don't know anything yet. But yeah, I mean, this is not great going into a presidential race. All the more reason why the president should be debating me and anyone else who is running, so that we can present to the American people who get lost in all this. This is what is so wrong. You know, as you were speaking about earlier, it's like
she's doing a good job transitioning this question.
And gossip. We need to think about the American people who are lost in all this. The American people, 1 in 4 of whom have medical debt, 18 million of whom cannot afford to pay.
Back to her point.
Pay in order to.
This is exactly how you would take these questions on the presidential debate stage. She's doing great.
A year.
She knows what she's doing.
Of our workers who live on less than $15 an hour and cannot even pay their.
Okay, hold on a second. Hold on. Wait. I have to pull this up. $15 an hour in US dollars is 27 Australian. Actually, no, I think it's more. Give me a second.
Oh, the thing is, every state, even Florida, has voted in a $15 minimum wage. It's something that is a good issue to have on your platform from the left, but it's already in the mix of happening. For I know.
I'm just gonna.
We already have legislation pushing it.
23 Australian dollars, right? Minimum wage here, I think, is $21.
Yeah, that seems fine to me.
Yeah.
Keep in mind.
I think that the value may have dropped actually, because I swear it was
taxes
like $30.
are also going to take a part of that. So
yeah,
and our taxes are probably more than yours, I'd assume.
Possibly.
Well, it depends on
pretty highly taxed.
Well, the thing is that our tax forms are purposely deceptive, where you claim yourself as a dependent. You can put a 0 there and get less. You can there's things you can do to get less tax taken out now, so it's less invested into your retirement fund. You know,
interesting.
There's certain things you can do to maximize how much tax is taken out as a gig worker.
Interesting.
People who are looking at all of these institutions and saying, you're failing us. You're not doing anything for me. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about an economic U-turn in this country.
Final question, Marianne. Should somebody who's just been found guilty by a jury of sexually abusing a woman, should that person be allowed to run?
You got to say liable. You were almost there. You got to say liable.
For president.
Everybody needs to vote for, well, right now they can legally. So every voter has to choose for themselves. But I'll tell you something. This is not about, listen, people who are total Trump supporters, like the person that you had on earlier, she doesn't care. They're not going to care. That's not what's going to lose for the Democrats in 2024. The power of Trump is not what's going to lose for the Democrats in 2024. What could lose for us, however, is droves of people staying home, particularly young people who
vote harder,
go to war for a president who approved the Willow Project and has given more oil drilling permits than even Trump did.
Good.
Who do not see in any way regarding their health care, regarding their capacity to go to college, regarding these college loan debts that are trackling.
I don't know. This is probably this might be a little old, but Biden did run on the platform of getting rid of student loan debt. So
my back either.
No, I think you're right.
That's what is dangerous for the Democratic Party in 2024. All the people who might be staying home unless we present them a genuine opportunity, a genuine alternative of economic reform and a whole new face. And obviously, I think that face should be.
Obviously, you think that face should be you, and you put your case very compellingly. And it's great to have you on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Overall, that was all right. She did well. I think she's going to do all right. I don't think she'll win, but she'll do all right. Who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe people will realize that Biden is a decrepit fossil.
Yeah, I also had the genocide apologist, but I think
3.5 hours is enough.
No, I was going to say, I think going with Piers Morgan after and seeing how she was actually talking to somebody who wasn't running the questions for her, you know, trying to get certain specific things. And she definitely would. I think she would do great in a debate, but it is just they just sideline everyone who doesn't have political experience, and you have to pay your fucking fealty to the establishment, you know?
Yeah. It's really disappointing. Yeah, I think we got enough.
I think she's fine.
Yeah, she's fine. She's perfectly normal politician.
Yeah, new left.
Yeah,
new
that's a
left
good way to
2.0.
describe it. Yeah.
Oh, that's how it used to be described, as this position.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, New Deal as well. The New Deal.
Yeah.
New Deal left.